We're now doing that. Okay, I see it. Okay, then I'm going to get started and I'll continue to let everybody in. Welcome, everybody. If you could mute yourselves right now, that would be great so we don't have any echoes or anything like that. We've got a large group here this morning. But most of you know me, but let me introduce myself to those who do not. I'm Victoria Hilditch, the coordinator of the Ridgewood Library ESL program, and I'm here with my colleague, Victoria Schnorr, the assistant ESL coordinator. Welcome to Ridgewood Library's Be Prepared program. Let me say that it's fantastic to see both tutors and students here today. I hope that you will continue to build on the information that's provided in your tutoring sessions. We are recording this session for those who are not able to attend today so that, we can use for future reference. The idea to have Ridgewood Fire and Police Departments present a program specific to our ESL community came about from concerns from both of our tutors and students that the students are not completely familiar or comfortable with our local laws, procedures, or what to do in case of an emergency. Our ESL program supports and promotes that our tutors are not just helping students learn the English language. We also want to make certain that you feel comfortable, knowledgeable, and secure in your day-to-day lives. And the more information we can provide for you to do this is important and our goal. Today's presentation will be in two segments. First, Fire Chief James Van Gore will speak, and then Police Chief Jackie Lucky. We'll take questions at the end of each of their presentations, and then we can wrap up at the end if there's even more. I will keep an eye on chat, or if you care to ask your questions, just raise your hand. But before we begin, let me say that we're honored to have both chiefs and their other members of their department take the time to be with us. Neither hesitated when asked if they would participate. They both express the value of providing clear information that will help you make the appropriate decisions, especially if it's an emergency. I believe that I speak for all of us when I say that it is our goal to help all members of our community. It makes us stronger and better. And now let me go ahead and introduce Ridgewood Fire Chief James Van Gore and Ridgewood Police Chief Jackie Lucky.
Good morning, everybody. I'm also here with John Young. He's a lieutenant in charge of the Fire Prevention Bureau, and he'll be talking also at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to try and share my screen. Hopefully this will work.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Looks good.
All right, I'm going to talk about the Ridgewood Fire Department and what services we offer. Also be talking about when do you call 911? What should you tell a dispatcher when you do call 911? Talk about medical emergencies and how we respond to them, and fire prevention. All right, the first thing, our main job obviously is to put out fires. We go to all building fires, vehicle, brush fires, any type of electrical fire. But we also do a lot of other stuff. If a pipe breaks in your house, floods your basement, or floods any part of your house, we'll come and help get the water out, make it safe, shut the electric off or gas or whatever is compromised. We also help people if they get locked out of their house or their car. We've had people locked in rooms that we've had to go in and get them out. Maybe a child gets locked in a bathroom and you can't get the door open. We'll come and help get the door open. We also do storm emergencies, floods, dangerous wires. If you ever see during a storm, one of the wires on the ground, don't go near it, stay away from it. Always figure it's live. We also do ambulance calls. All the firemen are emergency medical technicians. Confined space rescue. We have a dive team. Primarily, we're part of a grading pool dive team. We do swiftwater rescue, hazardous materials response. We have the train goes through Ridgewood. We have 17 If there's any car accidents where there's leaks or chemical spills, we'll clean it up. We'll make it safe. Any building collapse, we have specialized tools. We go in, rescue people, try and find people, make it safe. Also, electrical emergencies. If you have any type of electrical problem in your house, your outlet sparking, or you think there's something wrong with your electrical panel, you can always call us. We'll come and make sure that everything's good. Carbon monoxide. Everybody should have at least 2 carbon monoxide detectors in their house. And if it goes off, again, we have special tools. We can tell if there's carbon monoxide leaking from your furnace or your stove. We'll come in and we'll shut it off. We'll make sure that it's safe to stay inside the house or the business, wherever the activation is. We also do elevator rescues. There's a lot of elevators in town. Some of them are getting old, so people get stuck in them. We come in, we get the door open, get the people out. Gas leaks. Again, if you have a leak in your house, or even people have the gas grills out in the back of their house with the propane tank. If that's leaking or compromised in any way, we'll come make sure it's safe, put the fire out if it's on fire. We also do child seat installation instruction. If anybody has a newborn child, I know the hospital tells them to talk to somebody who's specialized in putting child seats in. And so that if somebody comes to the firehouse, we'll put the child seat in their car. We'll explain the best way to do it, how to install it. We go over every aspect of it. We also do vehicle extrications. If there's a car accident, we have special tools to get people out of the car if they're trapped in it. We'll clean up the spill if there's anything leaking from the car, or disconnect the battery to make sure it's safe to be towed away. That's basically the services we provide. But anytime you think you're not sure who to call, you can always just call 911 and they'll send us. I mean, last year we had somebody, after it snowed, they were trapped in their house. They couldn't open their doors because the snow was against their house. So they sent us and we dug out and got them out of their house. When do you call 911? Knowing how to use 911 is very important. If emergencies happen right now, just call 911. And wherever you are, that's a universal number. If there's a fire in your house or your neighbor's house, if you see a crime, somebody's hurting somebody else or breaking into a house, you call 911. I mean, these are just examples, but for any reason you feel there's an emergency, you can always call 911 and the dispatcher will help you. Obviously somebody's hurt, there's an illness or they're not breathing. And again, if you're not sure whether the situation is a true emergency, you can always call 911 and the dispatcher will help you. What you should tell the dispatcher when you do call is where the location of the emergency is, including street address, the town. The phone number you're calling from is important because in case you get disconnected, they'll call you back. What the nature of the problem is, the emergency, and details about the emergency so they know who to send, such as physical description of the person who committed a crime, description of any burning or where the fire is, or anybody who's injured. On medical emergencies, if you call because you're having a medical emergency, the ambulance personnel, when they get there, they'll ask you medical questions such as your past medical history, what medications you're taking, if you're allergic to anything. Specific questions may include, when the last time you ate, when the last time you took your medication. And what also is important is keep a list of your medication. And we always ask people to put the list on their refrigerator so we know where to look for it in case they forget. And also on that list, put your past medical history so you know what if you have any medical problems. Another good thing is to wear your medical alert bracelets if you have diabetes or any type of other medical problems. And John Young's going to talk about the fire prevention.
Okay, hello everyone. So part of my role as fire official and fire subcode was that we do inspections of any home that is sold or rented in Ridgewood. So part of that inspection will see that the smoke detectors are working properly, the carbon monoxide detectors are working properly, and there's a fire extinguisher in the kitchen area. And once everything is found to be in good condition and working, we issue an actual certificate. If you're renting a home or you're purchasing a home, that's one of the things you should have received when you first came into the home. So if you haven't received that, you can talk to either your landlord or your lawyer who handled the closing for you, and just to make sure that there was an inspection of the smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, and fire extinguishers. With smoke detectors, we know that fire is very fast. It moves very quickly. So it's very important that they're there and they're working properly. Um, it's one of those things. It's early intervention or early warning that allows you for early intervention. And it's important to know the type of system that you have in your home, as to if your system is a low voltage system, then it's the fire department is going to be notified immediately. If it's a battery powered system, which is the simplest system, which the majority of homes have, you're going to have to dial 911 once you exit the home. So that's good to know. Number one, what your smoke detectors sound like, and then when they do go off, um, who do you need to notify, or if you have to notify somebody. Having an emergency escape plan for your home is very important. That's just basically, if there's an emergency, where do we go? Where should we meet? You know, that's a good thing to discuss with everybody in the home. Um, fire extinguishers, they come in all shapes and sizes. The ones you have in your home today should be about the size, a little bit bigger than a 1 liter bottle. You'll see on the extinguisher itself, it has pictures of how to use it. They use the acronym of PASS, pull the pin, aim, and squeeze and sweep back and forth at the base of the fire. They're pretty self-explanatory. You'll see little pictures of showing what types of fire it can put out, where you'll see a picture of a burning Class A fire, which is burning paper and wood, a Class B fire, which is flammable liquids, and then you see a picture of a plug that's anything that's electrically energized. So you by looking at the extinguisher, you should be able to tell what type of fire it can handle. But you always want to make sure you dial 911 first, so that you start the process. You start the fire department, the police department on their way. You never want to waste time trying to put out the fire. You want to let the dial 911, make sure the help is en route. So do we have any questions about that? No, we talked about smoke detectors. Sorry, excuse me.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, we talked about smoke detectors. Carbon monoxide detectors are another part of the inspection that is very important. Carbon monoxide is a neutrally buoyant gas. It's colorless, odorless. So we wouldn't know that the room has it or doesn't have it unless you had a detector. The state requires them basically on every level. At the minimum of every level, it has a bedroom, and then every level that has a gas producing appliance. So that's a very important thing to have. Make sure that's in place and working properly. You can test them. You can read the manufacturer's guidelines. Usually it's testing them monthly. That'll let you know that they're working, but also let you know what it sounds like. Because a lot of people, if you've never heard it, you might hear a beep. Some of them are voice, but not all of them.
This is Lou. I have a question regarding fire extinguishers. So yeah, I have one. I never look at it. I never use it. How often should I maybe test it out? And what would it be to test out a fire extinguisher?
Well, for the most part, the extinguishers, maybe if you could mute yourself, we're getting a little bit of a feedback. I'll answer your question.
I'll mute myself.
Okay.
Excellent. So most of the extinguishers are, I don't know that they're single use, but for the most part, I wouldn't test that extinguisher and expect it to work the next time. what I've used, if you had a smaller one and you want to do it outside, it's the dry chemical extinguishers make a lot of mess. But you wouldn't want to use the extinguisher that you're going to keep, because I don't know that they always reseal the way they do. And they also, the pin, once you pull the pin, it can be problematic getting back in there. So if you have a smaller one and you want to test it outside, that's fine. But for the most part, the ones that are in your kitchen, if you look at them and they're in the green, and they should work. The state really, the most recent guideline for the state is that they want it to be current for this year if it's a residential home. But previous to that, we always inspected them, and as long as it was in the green, they were considered usable.
John, can I ask a question? Can people bring their fire extinguishers by the firehouse to make certain?
We don't fill them here. There are certain companies that do that, provide that service as far as recharging the extinguishers and things like that. But we don't have the capacity to deal with that so much. Okay. If they have a question, we are always happy to stop by and take a look at it and see if it's, functionable and usable, sort of thing. So any other questions?
If there are any questions, you can speak up, because I can't see everybody at the same time, but I'm kind of going through, but or put it in the chat. I'm not seeing anything right now.
Okay. Yeah, the biggest thing is to remember is we're going to call 911 once we get outside of the building, and we're going to go, once we get outside the building, we're going to stay at our meeting place so everyone knows that where we are. That's the big issue. When the police or fire arrive on the scene, the first question we're going to ask is everyone out safely. That's our most, obviously, life safety is our number one priority. We want to make sure everyone's out safely. And the only way we're going to know that is if everybody stays together. If someone decides to go somewhere else and we don't know definitively that everyone is out of the building, then we have to send personnel inside the building to do a search and then put them at unneeded risk if there is, depending on what's going on. So it's always key to get out of the house and stay at that meeting spot and wait for the police or fire to arrive, and then we can work things out from there. And don't be, like I said, we talked about 911. Some people are very hesitant to call 911. It's not a problem to call there, and like his chief said, give them your name and your number and tell them what the problem is, and we'll figure it out, or they'll figure it out and they'll dispatch either police, fire, EMS. But you never want to put off, for the most part, everybody knows what's normal. Something's out of place and not just right. It's always better to, make the call, get the appropriate people there and say, oh yeah, it's nothing. And there's no charge. And I think that's a big thing. People think, oh, I'm going to be charged, or somebody's going to, give me a hard time for calling 911. And we'd much rather call there and say, oh, no, that's, some people, we go for odor investigations through the years, and they'll be like, oh, that's a skunk. People from the city, in the summertime, it can be very pungent odor. And it's like, we'd much rather come there and say, oh, it's just a skunk. So, something to remember.
It's to err on the side of caution and call.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think one thing, could I ask, is if you're calling and it's an emergency, and I don't, 911, they ask what's your emergency, correct? Is that,
Right.
What if you don't know your number and you're disconnected? They cannot call you back. They don't know where the call comes from.
Most of the time they do. They have that caller ID, and they'll be able to call you back. That's if you call by accident, you hang up, they'll call you back if they have your number. Okay. So always make sure you answer, because then otherwise they send everybody to make sure there's not a problem.
Okay.
The reason that they ask is because, keep in mind, we are working with computer systems. And as I'm sure everybody knows, every now and then computer systems have a glitch. So there have been occasions where either a phone call has come in from like Timbuktu, literally it can be another state away, that sometimes it's a bad bounce on the computer systems. But yes, a vast majority of the time that information comes in properly.
Okay. And can I ask you both, is there an ability, I know you may have some people on staff that speak other languages, but of course, if it's an emergency and you can't remember your English to get the point across, is there a translation? Do that you have access that they could, if this is a Russian speaker or Japanese?
We do. We happen to have 2 people that speak Spanish, 1 that speaks Korean, right? And we also utilize what's called the language line. So if it's on a motor vehicle crash, it may be a little bit more difficult to get some of that assistance. We have even used some of the newer apps that are out there to help translate. And if there is a friend or a neighbor that can call for something like an accident. If it's something more significant, then we bring everybody, we just come into the police department to make that phone call. We put the phone on speakerphone. Even if we have no idea what the language is, the initial person that answers the call will start a conversation with the person, and they just kind of keep narrowing it down to getting the right person and the right dialect on the telephone call so that we can communicate. We also have the ability to contact other towns. If we know we're looking for one in particular, you know, we can call over to Glen Rock to say, hey, is your Spanish speaker working today? Because ours isn't.
Okay. And I think Valley Hospital might have the same thing. If you go into an ER, that you can get someone that they put in touch with to speak your language, the ability. Yeah, that's a great service. And not to have people feel panicked, right? In that.
I did see, I think it was, and I'm not going to pronounce the name properly, was it Kunyi that you had your hand up before? Did you have a question?
No? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But everybody it is, you know, and I can go through or put it in the chat or unmute yourself to say, you know, that you've got a question. But anybody else for the fire department? Was that it, Jim?
Yeah, that's our presentation.
That
Yeah,
was
pretty much
great.
it. The one other thing I was just thinking about as we were going over things, a bit of history. If you're driving around Ridgewood and you see these red boxes on the telephone poles throughout town with fire on them, they look kind of like they're antiques, but that's our Gamewell system, and that system is still in operation. But it's a very reliable system, but it lacks any real newer technology, so that if you were to pull down the handle, pull the little switch inside there, it's going to ring immediately to the fire station, and we're going to respond, but we're going to respond to that box. It has no way of telling where the fire is or what the emergency is, but somebody, whether police and fire, will be at that box in a matter of minutes. That's without any sort of cell phone or anything like that. And they're throughout town. And that's a lot of things. Even people lived here for a long time. They're like, oh, I thought that was an antique, but it's not the case at all. It's old, but it is working very properly. And our signal department in our town, they maintain the systems throughout the village. So that's just a little piece of something you don't see everywhere else, or that you might see and wonder about it. But that's another way of initiating. It would be the same thing as dialing 911. You're pulling that box. There's a little door, you pull a little switch, and that's going to set the whole process in motion. But point being said, that someone has to stay out that box to say what the problem is.
Okay.
Because the police and fire will respond to that box in very short order.
That's
Sometimes faster than it would be if you were to call 911 and dispatch this and this and that. They take a lot of information. That's all great, but the Gamewell system is very. It's almost immediate as soon as that lever is pulled. So.
Interesting. I know we have one down the street from us. I don't know if they're on every block or where they are through town.
They're throughout town. I couldn't tell you the exact distance between them and whether they're, but they are there and they work.
Perfect.
Most importantly.
And, I think some of the, as Victoria and I were saying, that we lived in the United States, grew up here, and a number of us, but what a great idea to put the information of your medical history and the medicine you're taking on your fridge. To have those things, I wouldn't realize, but right, if you're, that you can't relay that information, that you would come in and find them. That's very valuable. Okay, anything else, or we could move on to Chief Lucky in the police department?
Yep, I think we're all done. So.
Okay, thank you. And if anybody thinks of anything, don't hesitate to ask. Okay, Jackie.
So good morning, and I am here with my Detective Captain, Forrest Lyons. Our format's a little bit different. I don't have a fancy PowerPoint. I just do a lot of talking. And a lot of it is based on the questions that we have gotten through the years, or it's the people walk up and say, what do I do if, or how do I handle? So I'm going to be giving you a whole lot of information. And again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to stop me. If you noticed during, yes.
And we'll have, I think you did a printout last time, and we can have the same thing again that we could send to them if they don't catch all this information.
Yes, it is very lengthy, but yes. Okay. The first thing is, I'm sure you noticed as the fire department was doing the presentation, that we really do work hand in hand with the fire department. A lot of the calls that they go on, we are also being dispatched on, so that some emergency personnel gets there first, whether it's a CPR call and some of our either first responder trained or EMT trained are there as the fire department is getting there, whether it's a house fire and the fire department gets there first and we just use to secure the area to make sure nobody comes into it. But our departments work very closely together. Right now, we have 46 police officers on staff, one of which is in the police academy, which is really 6 months of schooling for that individual again. Our police services are divided up into the patrol division, the traffic division, the detective bureau, and accreditation or professional services and administration. And police are here to help you, whatever the problem or concern may be, whether it's an accident, a medical emergency, a theft, a lost item, a fight, a domestic violence, which may be pushing, pulling, shoving. It may just be verbal. If somebody's verbally putting you down all the time, that may also be a domestic violence. Or sometimes it's simply just a question. We average about 1,100 crimes in a year. And that's everything. I know there was a burglary question. That's everything from our burglaries, which we average about 35, but that includes people going into vehicles. Please, 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 I can't beg you enough. Lock your cars, take your keys out of them, and take your valuables out of them. A vast majority of thefts from the cars and thefts of cars are because people leave them unlocked. We average about 20 to 25,000 calls for service. And again, that's the whole range of things that we do while we are interacting with people. Our patrol division is the primary one that answers the calls for help. They walk around in town, they stop the cars, they do what's needed day to day. They are the ones that are in and out of your neighborhoods all the time. And they can't get to every street every day because in Ridgewood, we have almost 100 linear miles of roadway. That's almost the same amount of roadway as Paramus has. And everybody thinks about how big Paramus is in comparison, but because we have a lot of little tiny skinny streets. So they're not getting to every neighborhood every night, but they do filter in and out of the neighborhood depending on where and what their calls are for that night. The Detective Bureau is the one that follows up on cases when needed, and they do the main portions of the investigations. Our traffic unit, they will do some specific studies. If someone thinks there's big speeding complaints, they put down this special equipment so they can actually register how fast cars are going, and we can start to have some determinations about how we can best handle that situation. We are also nationally accredited, which means similar to the American Medical Association or American Dental Association, there are a whole bunch of standards that we have to abide by, and we've been following those standards since 1996. That's what our professional services accreditation unit does, and then we have, all of the office work that everybody else and every company has to deal with. A big question we get is, what do you do when a police officer stops you? And we want everybody to know that answer. If you're driving a car, open your window, turn on your interior lights, put your hands up on the steering wheel so we can see it. And if you have passengers, tell your passengers to put their hands up on the dashboard or on the headrests in front of them. Because for us to be able to see into vehicles is safer for everyone. We are then going to ask for your license, your registration, and your insurance card. If those items are located in your glove box, in your pocketbook, in your center console, don't just immediately reach for it. Tell us that it's there. And again, it's so we can see what's going on, because you have to remember, although everyone here is good and we probably have nothing to be concerned about, we do have people in town that have pulled out a knife from a center console when they've suddenly moved. And we all hear on the news about people coming out with guns. Everything that happens in the bigger cities happens right here in Ridgewood, just on a smaller scale, which does mean up to and including, yes, we have had murders in Ridgewood before. It's just not something that happens frequently. When you give the officer the information, the officer will explain to you why they stopped you, and they will explain the procedures for the ticket. They will walk back to their car. They may issue you a ticket. They are going to look at your driving history to make sure that your license is valid, your registration is valid. If, for example, you couldn't find your car insurance and the officer walked back without it and you were able to find it while they weren't there, we just ask, stick your hand out the window, holler backwards. Don't just get out of a car unless the officer asks you to get out of a car. And again, it's for your safety as much as it is for ours. On a busy roadway, you may notice that the officer approaches on the passenger side of the car to speak with you because it's much safer than approaching on the driver's side on a busy roadway. They will then explain what the procedures are and how to handle the ticket, whether you want to plead not guilty or whether you just want to pay a fine. If you have an international driver's license, most things that are called that you have paid for are not real. When you come to New Jersey, whether it's from another state or another country, you only have 60 days to get a new driver's license. If you're here on vacation and you're driving with a different license, just make sure you have an English translation to your driver's license. And those can be gained everywhere from AAA offices to consulates that can help you with those translations. But again, you only have 60 days to get a New Jersey driver's license if you're actually living in New Jersey. The information you should have with you is very similar to the information that should be on your refrigerator at home. Your name, your children's names, an emergency contact, a list of your medications, all of that, and your address. All of that is important information to have with you in case you get into a car accident and we need to contact someone else, or in case you get into a car accident and it's a medical emergency. So on the refrigerator is a great place at home, but you also should be having, again, your name, kids' names, emergency contacts, phone numbers, addresses, and medications should be with you all the time. Places like Valley Hospital and some doctor's offices even give nice little cards that you can write all of the information on and stick right in a purse or a wallet. Another question we get is, who are our crossing guards? So we have 35 crossing guards to handle the myriad of schools that we have in Ridgewood. They receive special training on how to stop cars, how to cross pedestrians. Sometimes they work in the summer to help people cross over by grade and pool. But it is important to teach your children the stop, look, and wave, and to stop at a crosswalk and look both ways before they continue, whether it's with or without a crossing guard. When someone is at a crosswalk, the vehicles must stop. And again, this is really where we talk about stop, look, and wave on both sides. The vehicle should stop, look at the pedestrian that wants to cross, wave the pedestrian on so that they know it's safe to cross. The pedestrian should be stopped at the corner, making eye contact with the driver, waving thank you to the driver for allowing to cross. So on both sides, you have your stop, your look, and your wave. You never want to assume a driver sees you. You never want to step in front of a car without that car being stopped. Even when a car is stopped, you still must be looking, because unfortunately we have had times that the car behind another car doesn't realize why they're stopped and they try to go around someone. And we have had pedestrians injured because of that. So you always have to be looking as a driver and as a pedestrian. The fire department presentation did talk a lot about calling 911. And one of the questions we get is, when do you call for an ambulance versus when do you drive somebody to the hospital? If it's something very minor, you can go yourself. When you call 911 for an ambulance, the police and the fire department are also sent to the call. So you get people there much faster. Basic first aid, life-threatening measures can be put into play immediately. Driving to the emergency room yourself for something bigger is not advised for many reasons, because everyone tends to be upset and stressed, and that doesn't make for a good driver. When emotions are running high, call 911. And as you already heard, if you're unsure if you should call 911 or not, just make the phone call and allow us to make that as a decision. One of the scams that's out there deals with donations for police and fire. Almost anything that is a telephone call is going to be a scam. The only donations that we send out is once a year at the end of the year, and it's in the mail from the Ridgewood Police Department, the Ridgewood PBA. That's the only thing that we send out. Those donations that we gather are used to buy equipment that we need, but maybe that the town hasn't been able to afford for us to buy. We've got new traffic safety vests, new winter jackets, items for our safety. If you receive a phone call, I'm telling you it's a scam. Anytime somebody tells you you must put money in the mail immediately, you must use a prepaid card You must wire money. Anything like that. It is a scam. I am telling you, your child, grandchild, niece, nephew, neighbor have not been arrested. They haven't been in an accident, and you don't have to send money to their lawyer to get them help or for their bail. PSE&G is not going to call you to say they're cutting off your power immediately. It is a scam. We are not going to call you to say, we have a warrant for your arrest and you must pay immediately. If there was a problem, we would go to your door. And if someone is at your door, you want to make sure that person is legitimate. You want to see if they have a permit from us. You want to check an identification. A UPS driver, everybody knows they wear those brown uniforms and brown shoes. And if it's a brown uniform and sneakers, you know it's not real. A water meter reading. They're not going to appear at your door and say, I need to come in, unless they have scheduled something with you or you have called them to say there is an emergency. So anyone that comes to your door, if you are unsure, again, call us. Let us come out and take a look. And any phone call that you get, if it makes you curious, hang up. Look up the phone number on the back of your credit card, or call your bank, or go to your Amazon account. Use the numbers there. Never use the number that they gave you on a phone call. And if you get an email that sounds too good to be true, it usually is. You don't have a long lost relative or a prince that has left you money. One of the other questions we get talks about robberies, but usually people really mean burglaries. A burglary is what most people are concerned about, because that's when somebody breaks into your house and steals things from you, or breaks into your car and steals things from you. That is a burglary. And most of those happen when people aren't home. People aren't in their cars. Their car may be parked in a park or parked in their driveway, or people may be on vacation, but very frequently it's when people are not home. A robbery is when force is used when people are stealing things. So that's more somebody that goes into a store and maybe steals some clothing and pushes the store owner while they're trying to get away. That would be a robbery. So there's a big difference between those two. If you come home and realize your house has been burglarized, do not go in the house. Call us immediately. Go to a neighbor's house. Go sit in your car. Make sure you're someplace safe so that we can come and we will go through the house to make sure nobody else is inside. If there are signs of a burglary, we'll call out our detective bureau, and they may ask you, do you want us to try to take fingerprints? And the reason we have to ask that question is because it can make a little bit of a mess. There's powder that gets on various surfaces. It's easy to clean up, but that's why we ask you. Again, Ridgewood overall is a very safe community. A lot of Bergen County is very safe communities, but we do have the same issues. There are some things you can do to help protect yourself and your home. Some deterrents to a burglary are getting a dog, getting an alarm system that you use, putting your lights and TVs on timers, always locking your doors and windows when you leave the house, even if it's for a brief period of time. Making sure the front of the house is locked up if you're in the backyard with the kids or the dog. Making sure the back of the house is locked up when you're doing something in the front of the house. We always say that using the same safety precautions you use when you're home at night asleep are the same safety precautions that should be used during the day. You have your screen door open because it's beautiful. Most screen doors can still lock. It's not wide open. So make sure you are always doing some of those best practices to keep yourself safe. And I said it before and I'll say it again, lock your cars and take your valuables out of them. Your doors, car and house, should be locked behind you, whether that means you're getting in or you're going out. Bunch of questions about teens. Any questions yet? I'll take a minute, pauser. Any questions yet? All right, teenagers and children. How old must they be to stay home alone? That is an answer for you. We don't know your kids. Some kids at age 11 are capable of staying home for a short period of time. Some kids can't do that even when they're 16 and 17 because you don't trust them enough. So it's really up to you. Obviously, 4, 5, 6-year-old, they're not staying home alone by themselves at any point in time. But it is a decision that you need to make. And part of that is making sure that they know in an emergency, they know who to call. They have your contact information and they know how to use the 911 system and how to make that phone call. Regarding alcohol, the legal drinking age is 21. And I'll include a little bit right now about marijuana as well, because the legal smoking age is going to be 21. Right now, marijuana is still illegal because there is no legal way to buy it unless you have a medical marijuana card. It has been decriminalized, which means we're not necessarily charging you with a crime anymore, but it is illegal to possess it until there is a legal way to buy it. And other illegal drugs can never, ever be used. The laws are there as much to help as they are to punish. And if parents feel their children have problems, they can contact us because there are ways to help and there are services that will be able to help. We're hoping to get some changes on the new marijuana laws because right now, even if we stopped your child for smoking marijuana and they were under age 18, we are not permitted to tell you about it with the new law. And I think most parents would say that seems a little silly that you'd want to know that your 12-year-old was smoking marijuana. So we're hoping that some of those can change in the very near future. Car seats and helmets. Under age 9, all children must be in the back seat, and it's recommended until age 13 or 100 pounds. In order to sit in the front seat, a child should be able to sit with their back against the seat and their knees should bend properly over the front of their seat. The seat belt should be coming across their shoulder and chest, not their neck. Infants must be in a rear-facing car seat until they are 1 year old or 20 pounds. And it's recommended for a child to continue to sit in a rear-facing seat as long as possible, even if it's after 20 pounds. Children must be in a forward-facing car seat until they are 4 years old or 40 pounds. And they must be in a booster seat until they're 8 years old or 80 pounds. But again, until they can sit properly in a seat, a booster seat may be safest for them. The only time a seat belt does not need to be fastened is when a car is in park. All other times, everyone in a vehicle must be wearing a seat belt. If not, the driver will get a ticket. If the person is an adult that is a passenger and not wearing a seatbelt, that adult will get a ticket. Helmets must be worn when bike riding, rollerblading, roller skating, skateboarding, etc., if a person is under age 18. However, it's recommended for everyone. Helmets, wrist guards, knee guards, they help prevent elbow pads. They help prevent a whole lot of injuries when problems occur. So we really recommend those for everyone. Bicycles must follow the same rules as cars. They have to stay on the correct side of the road, stop at stop signs, and stop at traffic lights. If they're crossing on the other side of the road, they're supposed to be off their bicycle and walk it across just like a pedestrian. Bicycles are not supposed to be on sidewalks. Now, we understand sometimes the busy streets, it's much safer for the kids to be up on the sidewalks, but they can't be riding past pedestrians or past people walking their dogs, because that actually causes more of a problem. We do have a problem right now with these groups of bicyclists that are trying to take over the streets, and they're going head on in traffic, trying to scare car drivers. We're hoping that their parents start to talk to them about the bad behavior, because we have had some very serious injuries when these bicyclists are wrong and car drivers can't stop in time or don't see them and accidents occur. If your child is involved in an incident and their name gets onto a police report, if they're under age 18, no one is ever going to find out about it. It's a juvenile records, and juvenile records are not accessible, with very few exceptions, one of which being if they want to be a police officer. If they are over age 18, everybody can find out about it. And it can have an effect on things like college admissions, which is why it's so important to talk to your children about their behavior, including making sure your kids know what to do if a car accident occurs. If there's no damage, it's really not an accident. But if there is damage, your safest bet is just to call us. Let us come out, we will take a report. If it's under $500 worth of damage, we check a little box that says non-reportable, so it really doesn't go anywhere. If it's over that, it does go to the state police, it goes to your insurance company, but you're going to want that anyway. In order to obtain a copy of a report, those are available in our records room. Right now, Village Hall is still closed to the public due to our COVID restrictions, but there is an email address, or you can call them to arrange to get copies of any report that you may need that we have taken. If your car has been damaged in a hit and run and you are not there, you're still better off calling us, because we will come out and look to see where your car is parked, look to see what cars are around yours. If you come into the police department to report it, we're just going to hand you a piece of paper, and it's up to you to do the report, because we weren't there to verify what happened. So that's why it's important to call us when an accident occurs, instead of trying to handle things on your own. You can still handle it on your own afterwards, but let our report serve as a record. We talked a little bit already about language support. If you're stopped after you've been drinking, the 0.08 is what our legal limit is right now. Even if you are below that number, you can still be charged with drinking and driving. Again, under 21, it doesn't matter what that number is, it's all illegal. But even over 21, if you had 2 glasses of wine on an empty stomach in a short period of time and you're driving, you may not be above that number, but you may not still be able to drive. That's one of the times we will ask you out of the car and we will put you through what's called field sobriety testing. Standing on one leg, taking some steps back and forth, turning around, talking with us. If we feel you shouldn't have been driving, we will put you under arrest, bring you into the police department, and ask you to blow into a special machine that will measure how much alcohol is in your system. If you have the alcohol in your system, your license will get suspended. If you refuse to take that test, your license will also get suspended for an even longer period of time. If you're on the cell phone, cell phone must be hands-free, and new drivers are not allowed to be on cell phones at all, including hands-free. They are not allowed using a cell phone at all while they are driving. For us, you're not allowed to be texting. You can have it hooked up to be following your GPS, that's fine. But anytime you're taking your eyes away from the road, it creates a bigger danger. So the only exception to being on the phone when you're driving is if you have to call 911 for something. That is the only exception. The fines go in different amounts, start at $200 and can end up at $800 and $1,000 if you're found. When an emergency vehicle is coming down the roadway, whether it's the fire, ambulance, or police, pull over to the right side of the road and stop your car. Give them enough room to go through. Once it's clear, so look behind you, because sometimes it's not just one emergency vehicle. Sometimes it can be 2 or 3. So make sure it's clear after the first one passes, and then you can get back into traffic and start going again. If you go over a double yellow line to go home. Yes, in general, double yellow lines mean you're not allowed to cross it. But if you need to cross it to go home or pull into your driveway, it's okay. It is one of the common questions we actually get because people get nervous about it. Now, it's not okay to go over the double yellow lines in the middle of Ridgewood Avenue or on one of our side streets in town to go park on the other side of the road. That is not legal. Technically, it says you can't have any forward motion on the wrong side of the road. So the only other time you're going to do it is when people like us are directing traffic. At our 4-way stop signs, everybody loves that stop sign. Spring and Van Deen, 4-way stop sign, and cars get there and go, now what? There's 2 different rules. One is whoever gets there first is the one that should go first. The second is if both cars get there or more than one car gets there at the same time, the vehicle on the right is the one that's supposed to go first. As long as you're paying attention and somebody waves somebody else on, everybody should be able to get through it safely. What happens if you have a car behind you with its lights and sirens on, but it has no markings on it? So we do have some unmarked police cars. And years ago, there were all these problems with people getting pulled over by fake police officers, not here, but in other states. So people got very scared about pulling over. If you're in a well-lit area, and again, you have a couple of options. Stop, roll your window down a little bit, and ask them for a marked police car. It's also one of the times, call 911. Say, I'm on Linwood Avenue and there's a car behind me that wants me to stop. Is it a real police car? And if you're on Linwood Avenue in our town, we're going to know somebody's trying to stop you, and we will also get a marked unit over there. If you're somewhere else, Don't speed up to try to get away, but drive slowly. You can even put your flashers on. You can get to a well-lit area. And again, ask for another car that's marked so that you know who it is. Most frequently, even in our unmarked cars, the person getting out of the car is a uniformed police officer. The exception to that is if one of the detectives, see, he's dressed in plain clothes here behind me.
See me. This is how I dress. See? Pants. I'm too tall.
I know.
Very tall. But we
So,
do have these.
so on occasions, if you've done something really wrong, somebody in plain clothes, including myself sometimes, is going to stop you. But again, roll down the window and ask for a marked unit, or call 911 to verify that's really who we are. Biggest rules that we always go by is if you see something, say something. I know the fire department touched on it too. If you see something that makes you look at it twice, never hesitate to call us to come out and check it out. A strange car in front of your neighbor's house taking photos, a backpack thrown into the garbage, even hearing that bump in the middle of the night. Don't grab the baseball bat and go outside to look for it yourself. Call us. We work 24/7. We have people wandering the neighborhoods, our police officers at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. Let us come to evaluate the situation. If there's anything out of the ordinary and you're going, just make that call. On the Village of Ridgewood website, you can sign up for the e-notices and the Swift Reach phone calls. Those are the emergency systems that are usually used to get out the information to you about what's going on. You can also follow the Ridgewood Police Department on Facebook and Twitter. It's another method that we use to get out some quick information. Visitor and resident safety is of the utmost importance to us. We want everyone to feel safe and to enjoy living in and visiting Ridgewood. This town belongs to you just as much as this town belongs to me. It's very important for all of us to work together to be safe and happy. That's all I got. If we have any questions, even if you don't think of the questions right now, you can send me an email, give me a call. We can always chat about things later on.
Jackie, thank you so much. And I do that we could send out the link for them because the reverse phone calls are very important, and the emails. So much information. I get them from Village Hall that just for what's going on in town is very important. So we'll see if we can find the links to send to everybody. And I recommend that you do that as well. Anybody have any questions? It's been very thorough what y'all have provided. And once again, I've learned a lot.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure,
Yeah,
Cornelia.
so yes, the use. I think the first of all, thank you. And you said you belong to our town. Is that the expression is very touchy because nowadays the hate crime against the Asian community as that goes up, so so actually yes, I know that this town is very safe for everybody, but I'm a little scared of that crime. Yes, as one of the Asian people is I just want to know any plan to prevent or protect. Yeah.
So it really is the same rules that have always held true about being aware. And we know, I mean, what happened down in Georgia was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. I know Paramus is having a vigil this coming weekend. I know the Ridgewood community is putting together one. I believe it's going to be June 10th. And part of that is to recognize all of the Asian community that we have here in Ridgewood, because you have a very robust community that helps support the rest of us. And we need to show that we also help support you. Getting to know your friends and neighbors, whether it's at home or in your business. Normal safety precautions, not walking around by yourself when it's really dark out or in dangerous areas. If you are by yourself, having your phone easily accessible, but people that walk around like this all the time or like this all the time are a target. I'm sure everybody has at least seen the YouTube failures, if you haven't seen it in person, of someone walking into a parking meter or a telephone pole because they're not paying attention. When people have both earphones in when they're jogging or walking, that's one whole sense that you're now taking out of the picture. You're not as aware of your surroundings. But it is practicing those good safety precautions, making sure things are properly locked up. As you're going to your car, make sure you're looking at your car before you get into your car. But again, everything should be locked up, so you're unlocking it as you get to it. Newer cars, you can unlock just the driver's side if that's all you need to get into. But it's really a lot of the same safety precautions about being aware, always being ready to call 911, and some of our community events, because the more people know about each other, the less people judge them based on single characteristics. And that holds true for you and your community as much as it does for me and the police department. Because so many people judge police on the actions of what's happening in other states, when those are things that don't happen here. Just like so many of these communities are being judged on actions of one, or simply being unfairly judged, that, you know, we're all learning more about some of our unconscious biases, but the best way to overcome them is to be knowing each other better. I hope I was able to help answer your question.
Thank you for that, Kunhee. Yeah, and Jackie. That. Minyoung?
Yeah, I really appreciate it, have a chance of such a good seminar, because I came from Korea last year, and then in uneven, difficult, unusual situation, I think this town is very peaceful and calm and safe, I think. I have 3 questions. One is, in Korea, there are different phone numbers for the fire station and for the police station. But how about this? It's the same. When I get an emergency, can I call 911?
Yes.
That's one.
Here, 911 will get you police, fire, ambulance.
Really? Oh,
So
thank you.
get all of the above with 911. We all have our own non-emergency numbers if you have questions, but 911 is your safest bet here.
Okay. The other question is, if bad things happen on the road, if I need help from police officer, because of my limited English, I can't explain in detail. So can I use your interpreter, or public interpreter service?
Yes. So on the phone, that initially goes to our dispatch center. And the dispatchers have the same access to the language line as we do. So if they are really having a hard time, either, there's kind of 2 things that will happen. Number one, they're still going to send us to whatever address is coming up on that 911 call, or whatever area is coming up on that 911 call, even if they don't know what the emergency is, because they know there's a problem, that may have a language barrier.
Mm.
Number two, they may be able to use that language line service to get more information from you as we are all going to your scene.
Mm. Okay, thank you. The last one is I heard in US the children can stay at the car by themselves. I have two children, one is 7 years old, the other is 7th grade. But sometimes my 7-year-old son doesn't want to go into the shopping center together. So he wants to stay with the big sister. But I heard I heard the America can kids stay by themselves. So I wonder yes. So how is it possible to stay themselves because of an older sister or not?
So if they are 12 and 7 and they want to sit in the car while you're in the store, yes, as long as you feel your 12 and 7-year-old can stay by themselves for that period of time and they know what to do in an emergency.
Okay.
So they know whether it's scream and yell because they don't have cell phones yet. They know how to contact you, what store you went into, what your name is. It's surprising how many kids just know parents as mom and dad. And then there's a problem and we're trying to announce over the loudspeaker, we need mom and dad. That doesn't help very much. We need your names as well. But yes, at 12 years old, normally they're pretty good. 7,
really?
not by himself.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good
welcome.
information.
Jackie, you brought up something. Can I ask a quick question? A lot of people don't have landlines any longer, but will the cell phone, is it with the tower? You know, it doesn't take you to an address, does it? It takes you to where the call is coming from.
Yes, so a lot of times that is based on the towers that are being used. So it's not necessarily an exact address, it's a vicinity.
Okay.
Which again is why we're always asking for addresses. And it's
Right. I'm in the
always
Graydon parking lot. And so you get there, you know, they're on the cell phone or something. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and I know a lot of people don't have landlines. It is something we actually still recommend, is having at least a landline at your house, a phone that you can get to from the ground. So whether it's a long cord, but in an emergency, so many times either batteries are dead, or as we have seen on some of the big storms, cell phones don't work. So having the backup of a landline phone is really something that's still good.
Good to know. We still have ours. I hardly pick it up because I think they're scam calls. Any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. I don't know if you have, either one of you have any other comments that you would?
I would just like to thank everyone for their attendance today. It really is some very important information that both of our agencies give out. And the more people we can get that information to and can help us pass that information, the stronger we're going to be as a community.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I want to thank everybody for inviting us and paying attention, and hopefully we can do this again.
Right, and I thank y'all for willingly doing this program again. It's the second time, and I know that even though you know, Native Americans here that growing up here, that we're learning something. But I think you'll see Jackie, you know, Chief Lucky and Chief Van Gore in town, and you know, the rest of the departments. So make certain you say hello. They're a part of the community just as we all are, and working together. So their departments are very accessible. So we thank you for this.
And I would say, if you see us out and about, and again, because we're under COVID restrictions, it's a little harder. I used to always say, bring your kids to the department and we'll give them a tour. But because we're still under COVID restrictions, nobody really wants that. But if you see one of the officers in their car, especially with the kids, they'll show you what they have in the car. And it helps kids feel better about interaction with us, because so many times the only time they see us is when there's a problem. And we want kids to see us in a better light. We are hoping that maybe possibly we can do our junior police academy again this year, but it will definitely be a very modified version of it with the still having COVID restrictions. But it's something that we've had a lot of fun with, and it's something you should look into your children as they get old enough for it.
And the fire department in October, do you typically have, is it tours or things with the kids?
Yeah, usually, well, like she's saying, because of COVID, we
Right.
haven't done it in a while, but yeah, normally you can just call up, make an appointment and stop by anytime you want. We'll give you a tour, but in October, it's Fire Prevention Week, and we'll do an open house. We have demonstrations, and everybody can come on that day.
I grew up, the reward after going to church and being good in church was going over to the fire department and climbing on the fire trucks. We've always been very open and welcoming with people coming in, and we are too.
Fantastic. Okay, then I appreciate just this vital information for all of us. And I hope that the tutors that are here, if your students are not, are continuing the conversation with your students. If they're not, passing this on, and it is recorded, that we'll share it with everyone, because it's all just very important information. So I thank you both your departments for coming. And so I appreciate it very much.
Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.